Now, this story is called The Brief History of the Roman Empire. Now, first of all, I will name as many emperors as I can recall, because there were so many of them. And after that, we shall go through the highlights, as it were, of the 503 years of the life of the Roman Empire. The first emperor of Rome was Caesar Augustus, so we shall start from him. Caesar Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba, Otto, Vitellius, Vespasian, Titus, Domitian, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, Marcus Aurelius, Lucius Verus, Commodus Pertinax, Didius Julianum, Septimius Severus, Caracalla, Geta, Macrinus, Alagabalus, Alexander Severus, Maximin Gordian, Gordian II Maximus, Balbinus, Gordian III, Philip Dacius, Hostilian, Gallus, Emilian, Valerian, Gallienus, Claudius Tucoticus, Quintilius, Aurelian, Tacitus, Florian, Probus, Carus, Carinus, Numerian, Diocletian, Constantius, Chlorus, Severus, Maxentius, Constantine the Great, Constantine II, Constantius II, Magnentius, Julian, Theodosius, Honorius, and the last one, Romulus. Now, obviously, we are obliged to start with Julius Caesar, as he was the man who laid the foundations of the empire. After conquering parts of modern Portugal, Spain, and France, Julius Caesar in 55 BC tried to conquer the island of Britannia. However, he had barely crossed the river Thames with his 5 legions when all of a sudden he turned back and rushed across the channel into modern France. Apparently, he was informed that his arch-rival Pompeo was marching towards Rome with 10 legions. The two men met for the last time in battle somewhere in modern Spain. There, Pompeo was vanquished, and Julius Caesar was paraded through the streets of Rome in triumph. The Senate made Julius Caesar dictator for life. However, there were many Romans, and among them also Caesar's illegitimate son Brutus. These men were totally and vehemently against Rome becoming a monarchy. However, some of them, including Brutus, perceived that Julius Caesar was striving very hard to become a king. This was the reason why, on the 15th of March, 44 BC, later known as the Ides of March, Julius Caesar was repeatedly stabbed to death by Brutus and also others. Civil war raged across Rome for many years. Octavian, barely 20, he was Caesar's adopted son. And Mark Antony, he was Caesar's general and best friend. These two men were pitted against each other for power. Mark Antony allied himself with the Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra. At the last decisive battle in Actinium, Greece, Octavian was victorious, and Mark Antony took his own life, and as we all know, so did Cleopatra, using the venomous bite of an asp. So, in the year 27 BC, Octavian was proclaimed Emperor Caesar Augustus. He turned out to be a great emperor. During his 41 years of reign, Rome was transformed from a republic to an empire. At his deathbed, Augustus said to the people around him, "The world is a vast stage. We are all born, we are all here to play our part. Now, if you think I played my part well, please give me a round of applause. He was succeeded by his adopted son, Tiberius. Tiberius was a nasty piece of work, especially in the last years of his life. It seemed as though he lost his mind altogether. When he died, he was succeeded by his adopted son, Caligula. Caligula was cruel, tyrannical, bordering on madness. He would kill for pleasure and reveled on inflicting pain. He was eventually murdered by the Praetorian Guards. Now Claudius was in his mid-50s when he succeeded his nephew Caligula. Luckily for Rome, he was a very wise man. In fact, it was Claudius who first initiated the system of legislation. During his 14 years of reign, Rome experienced the largest expansion of the empire, which also included the island of Britannia, invaded in 43 AD. When Claudius died, probably poisoned by Agrippina, who was his wife and also Nero's mother, he was succeeded, obviously, by his adopted son, Nero. Now, Nero fancied himself as a talented artist. He set fire to Rome so that he could get involved with the architecture of the new Rome. He blamed the Christians for the fire. However, when the Senate found out that he himself was the culprit, Nero was declared enemy of Rome #1. He killed himself in order to avoid being murdered by the crowd. Anyway, it was under Nero's reign that Boudica, queen of the Iceni, emerged as a heroine. When her king husband died, a detachment of soldiers was dispatched in order to secure his legacy. The amount of money demanded was totally out of all context. When Boudica protested, her 2 daughters were repeatedly raped by the soldiers, and she herself was flogged and tortured. Boudica called on her nation, whom by the way was modern East Anglia, called on her nation to arms. In a relatively short time, modern Colchester, London and St. Albans were sacked by her and her people. Boudica seemed unstoppable. A worthy Roman governor, Paulinus, selected his best legions in order to stop her, as she was now regarded as a major threat to the Roman system itself. So somewhere in the Midlands, after a ferocious battle which cost the lives of tens of thousands of people, Boudica was cut down by the legions, and she took her own life. Now the Roman Empire reached its peak under the reigns of Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius was also a philosopher and a writer. When someone asked him what was the meaning of life, he replied, "My dear friend, life is exactly what we make of it." In the year 69, the island of Britannia prospered. Consequently, the process of Romanization accelerated. Also in 69, Emperor Vespasian realized that the empire was drifting towards an economical disaster. In order to balance the books, he took extreme actions, which also included charging for the use of the toilets. When his son Titus protested, he picked up a coin coming from the charging of the toilets and put it under his son's nose. He then asked, "Titus, does this coin smell of anything?" 10 years later, in 79, under Titus' reign, the towns of Pompeii and Herculaneum were destroyed and buried under the ashes caused by a cataclysmic eruption of Mount Vesuvius. In the year 121, Emperor Hadrian came to Britannia not to conquer, but to build the Hadrian's Wall. The wall was about 73 miles long and it stretched from coast to coast. But more importantly, the wall kept the Picts and the Caledonians at bay for almost 100 years. In the year 253, something bizarre happened. Sapor, leader of the Persians, in battle destroyed the legions of Emperor Valerian. He took Valerian as a prisoner, and then he used him as a mounting block when he mounted his horse. Furthermore, when Emperor Valerian died, he had his body stuffed, and then he continued to use him as a mounting block. In the year 284, Emperor Diocletian harassed and persecuted the Christians, forcing them to recant Christianity. He also destroyed many churches across the empire. Urban of Britannia point blank refused to recant Christianity. Consequently, he was executed at the spot where now stands the Cathedral of St. Albans. In the year 311, the night before a major battle, Emperor Constantine saw a cross in the sky. Convinced of divine will, he ordered that the emblem of the cross be painted in each man's shield. The next day, he destroyed the legions of Maxentius in the outskirts of Rome, even though he was outnumbered by almost 2 to 1. He was paraded through the streets of Rome in glory. The Senate ordered that an arch be built in his honor. The Arch of Constantine still stands today. He encouraged Christianity and built many churches. He also rebuilt the old city of Byzantium and made it his own. He called it Constantinopolis. After the death of Constantine, the decline of Rome accelerated so fast that in 410 Rome itself was sacked by Hilaric and the Visigoths. Also in 410, the Romans left the island of Britannia forever. In the year 476, at a symbolic ceremony, the last emperor of Rome, Romulus, he surrendered his imperial robes to the barbarians. Obviously at the time, Emperor Romulus had absolutely no idea that the barbarians were going to become a fantastic rugby team.